For 10 years, a respected doctor killed more than 35 people, and nobody saw it coming because he did it with a pen, a chart, and a calm voice. I'm Santa. This is a straight story. No flowers, no sugar. A hospital, a pattern, and a team that refused to look away until the truth came out. His name was Dr. Elias Ward. At St. Aurelia Medical Center, he was the safe pair of hands. Families said he listened. Nurses said he was steady. Administrators liked that he never caused trouble. He wore the same neat white coat every day and spoke in the same measured tone. If you didn't know better, you would trust him within 5 minutes. Most people did. Here is what the numbers said. If you line them up, Ward's patients died a little more often than they should have. Not the complicated cases. Ordinary admissions. People who came in for manageable problems and should have left. They stayed longer. Then they drifted. Then they died. Not with alarm screaming. With charts that read decline and comfort measures and family at bedside. The person who noticed first was a night nurse named Maya Chen. She worked the quiet hours when families went home and the building slowed down. Maya liked structure. She checked dosages twice. She logged every small change. After 3 years on the floor, she felt something was off. She saw the same doctor's name on too many charts when the end came sooner than expected. She did not accuse him. She started a notebook. She wrote down dates, times, drugs, and dose changes. She circled names. She looked back at old cases and saw the same shape. A small medication increase near the end. A switch to a different drug for tolerance. Orders placed late in the evening. Always within guidelines if you didn't ask questions. Always explainable if you wanted to move on. That was the point. It was supposed to pass unnoticed. Another person was watching the system from a different angle. In the basement level, near the pharmacy window, a pharmacist named Omar Patel kept a list of odd orders. He didn't write formal incident reports unless the order was clearly wrong. But he had a simple rule. If an order made him frown and he couldn't say why, he wrote it down. Ward's orders landed on that list more than anyone else's. The first case that pushed Maya from suspicion to action was a 71-year-old retired teacher named Luis Alvarez. He came in for a heart rhythm issue that looked manageable. He was stable, polite, and detailed. He folded his blanket. He listened. On the second night, Ward increased a medication slightly and documented the reason as overnight control. By morning, Alvarez was groggy. By afternoon, he was slow to answer. By evening, he was on comfort care. He died before midnight. The chart read complication. The family got sympathy from Ward himself. Maya pulled older files that same night. She read the last 48 hours of similar cases and saw the same pattern, a justified adjustment, a slide, and a calm explanation. She took her notes to the quality officer. He said, "We'll review." She knew what that meant. Meetings. Delays. She kept writing. 2 weeks later, a mother of 4 with a simple infection came in. She responded to antibiotics. Ward changed her pain management plan for rest. She declined. The death was labeled unexpected. Another week, a firefighter with strong lungs came in for a check. Same pattern. Change, slide, statement, condolences. Omar saw the same pattern in the system. He began flagging Ward's orders for pharmacist review when the patient profile didn't match the adjustment. Flags don't accuse. They just slow things down and ask for another set of eyes. Ward noticed the extra clicks. He didn't like them. Ward's image inside the hospital was strong. He had donors on his side and a public reputation for being calm during high-profile cases. He did interviews well. He said he believed in communication and dignity. If you worked in the building, it was easier to believe he was a model doctor than to think he was a threat. That was his advantage. Maya and Omar met by accident in the cafeteria during a late shift. 2 coffees, 2 tired faces, one subject neither wanted to say out loud. Maya opened her notebook. Omar opened his list. They matched dates and drug names. It lined up. They agreed to bring 3 cases to the coroner instead of 30. If they brought too many, it would look like a witch hunt. If they brought none, more people would die. The coroner's office was overloaded. Toxicology costs time. Still, one case stood out: a middle-aged woman who had no reason to decline the way she did. A toxicology screen was ordered. The result was not explosive, but it was not normal either. Levels that raised questions. The office requested 2 more screens from past deaths. They showed a similar pattern. None were blatant poisonings. All had a signal. Detective Laura Quinn took the call. She didn't walk into the hospital waving her badge. She visited like a relative. She observed Ward's rounds. She saw him sit with families and explain things gently. She saw nurses relax when he entered a room. She didn't jump to conclusions. She took notes on timing, on who signed what, on which orders came after the family left for the night. Ward felt the pressure. He increased his visibility, visited more rooms, asked more about families, and thanked nurses for their vigilance. He stayed late. He performed the part of a good doctor even better than before. That made the building feel safe. It also made Maya and Omar push harder. The near miss that changed everything involved a teenage boy named Luis Torres. He had a minor procedure elsewhere and was admitted overnight for observation. He was healthy and bored, scrolling his phone and complaining about bland food. Ward adjusted a nighttime medication for comfort, though the boy had no real pain. Because of Omar's flag, the pharmacy held the order for a review. The system sent a soft alert to the floor. Maya saw it. She called Omar. Omar called Detective Quinn, who happened to be in the building. Quinn walked to the room, stood in the doorway, and waited. Ward arrived with his usual friendly greeting. He prepared to write a second related order to reinforce the first. Quinn stepped forward and asked for a quick conversation in the hall. She kept her tone neutral. She kept him talking while the pharmacist completed the review and a second attending doctor reevaluated the dose. The second doctor reduced it. The dose was given at the lower level. The boy slept. He woke up fine, and he went home 2 days later. The hallway looked normal, but a door had opened in the case. Quinn got a judge to authorize a quiet review of the hospital's prescription logs. Audit trails showed who ordered what and when. In a big system, small mismatches are common. But when you lay out a timeline for a single physician over 10 years and see the same late evening switches followed by the same comfort measures, it doesn't look like noise. The coroner reclassified several deaths as undetermined, pending investigation. That move forced the hospital to take the issue seriously. Risk management called meetings. Public relations prepared statements that sounded like concern. Ward was still seeing patients. He kept his schedule. He kept smiling. He sent condolence notes when old anniversaries came up. He was playing for time. The break came from paper, not pixels. A file clerk digitizing old charts found a handwritten medication note signed by Ward from 8 years earlier. The paper dose was higher than the dose shown in the electronic record. The note was scanned and sent up the chain. Quinn compared the handwriting to other samples and found consistency. A forensic document examiner gave an opinion that the same hand wrote both the original and later corrections. That supported a theory. An order had been adjusted on paper in the moment, then softened in the record later. Quinn prepared a search warrant for Ward's office and digital devices. The team arrived early, moved quietly, and copied data. They pulled email, messages, and access logs. They got his personal notebook, which was neat and sparse. No confessions. No "I did it" pages. Just enough to show an organized mind. The interviews started. Quinn spoke to nurses who had glanced at an odd order and then looked away because the name signed at the bottom carried weight. She spoke to residents who felt uneasy but told themselves they were learning and must have missed something. She spoke to families who remembered Ward's voice and how it slowed down when he delivered bad news. The pattern was human. People trusted the person who sounded sure. Ward agreed to an interview with counsel present. He said he had never intended harm. He said medicine has gray areas. He said people want certainty from doctors, and he gave them the best he had. He said he believed in comfort. He said decisions should not be second-guessed by people who weren't there. He did not explain why comfort kept arriving before consent. Meanwhile, Quinn worked with the coroner and a medical toxicologist to draw a clean line. The team selected a core set of deaths. They focused on cases with clear charts, consistent timing, and drug levels that did not match the patient's condition. They prepared a timeline for each case, down to the hour. They showed when a family left, when ward entered, when a change was signed, and when the downturn started. The hospital put Ward on administrative leave during the investigation. Publicly, they said they were cooperating. Internally, they argued about liability and reputation. Donors called. Lawyers called. Board members debated whether this was real or a pile of coincidences. The data kept growing. Coincidences do not repeat for a decade with the same signature unless someone is writing it. Ward was arrested on charges connected to a subset of deaths, while the broader pattern was presented to a grand jury. The arrest was calm. He did not run. He did not fight. He stood straight, nodded to a nurse he knew, and left through a side exit. The building felt colder after that. People realized how much warm tone can hide. The trial moved carefully. The prosecution did not claim Ward poisoned patients in a dramatic way. They presented a method, small, plausible changes used as a weapon. They argued that the weapon worked because everyone trusted the person holding it. They brought in charts, logs, toxicology, and witnesses. A software auditor explained how order times are recorded and how they can't be changed without leaving a trail. A toxicologist explained ranges, metabolism, and why high normal in the chart did not match sample results in the lab. Nurses explained why a change felt wrong even if they couldn't explain it in the moment. The defense leaned on uncertainty. They said medicine is complicated. They said guidelines are flexible. They said any apparent pattern could be survivorship bias. They said you can't convict a man for being decisive in a chaotic field. They tried to turn the nurse's suspicion into a personal issue. They tried to turn the pharmacist's list into a hobby that proved nothing. They tried to reduce the detective's timeline to storyboarding. The case might have stalled without the near miss and the old paper chart. The near miss showed intent without a death. The paper chart showed a dose that existed in reality, even if the digital record told a softer story. Together, those 2 points gave weight to the pattern. The judge allowed the broader set of reclassified deaths for context. Jurors saw individual stories they could understand and a map that tied them together. The testimony from families was quiet and effective. A daughter described how her mother was joking in the afternoon, then more sleepy than usual after a new note appeared in the chart. A son described how his father asked to walk the hall, but the doctor recommended rest. They were not angry at the hospital. They were confused. They had trusted. They felt that trust had been used against them. On cross-examination, Ward did not testify. His counsel kept him out of the box. Instead, the defense called expert witnesses. The experts spoke about ranges and practices and how a single change cannot be isolated from a patient's overall condition. The prosecution put up their own experts. The jury had to decide which set of professionals they believed and whether the sequence of changes, across years, across rooms, was natural or designed. In closing, the prosecution stayed simple. A doctor used small, defensible changes to push certain patients toward death without their informed consent. He selected moments with less oversight. He wrote notes that sounded right. He relied on trust. That is murder, not medicine. The defense repeated their theme: complexity, uncertainty, and care taken out of context. The jury convicted on multiple counts tied to specific deaths and returned lesser verdicts on others where the pattern was strong, but the data had gaps. In total, 37 deaths were officially tied to Ward's actions, with the court acknowledging the likelihood that the true number could be higher. The sentence measured in decades. Ward went to prison. The hospital announced reforms: mandatory second physician checks for high-risk adjustments, improved pharmacy flags, and routine audits of order patterns. After the trial, Maya kept working. She took a few weeks off to sleep and then came back to nights. She helped start a committee that reviewed medication changes at shift change with one rule: if anyone feels uneasy, speak up and document it. Omar trained new pharmacists on pattern recognition and on how to escalate without drama. The coroner's office added a policy that triggers toxicology for unexpected in-hospital deaths with certain medication changes. Detective Quinn closed the file and moved on. She doesn't like being called a hero. She says she did her job. She says the rail lift came from a nurse who wrote things down and a pharmacist who didn't file away his doubts. She is right. The case started and ended with people who decided that routine is not a reason to ignore a problem. There are lessons here, and they are practical. Consent matters. Timing matters. Audit trails matter. If a change is within guidelines, that doesn't mean it matches the patient in front of you. If a person's confidence silences every other voice in the room, pause. Ask why the change is necessary. Ask whether the patient and family understand. Ask whether a second opinion is needed. That is not disrespect. That is safety. If you are a patient or a family member, you do not need to speak the language of medicine to ask a clear question. What changed? Why? And what are the risks? If the answer is vague, ask again. If the answer is fast, ask for it in writing. If the answer leans on reputation, ask for data. People like Ward rely on quiet acceptance. Break the quiet. If you are inside a system, use the system. Flags, audits, second checks, and documented concerns are not annoyances. They're brakes that keep the car from going off the road. Nobody likes extra clicks in a software. Do them anyway. You never know which click stops a death. This story is not about hating doctors. It is about stopping one man who used trust as a tool. Most doctors save lives. Good doctors welcome questions and second checks. They put consent first. They do not change a course to convenience themselves. They do not rely on late hours and smooth words. They know that the room belongs to the patient. Now, a few details to answer the obvious: how and why. How? Small dose increases at times of low oversight, switches to medications with narrow windows, and early moves to comfort care language that made further treatment seem unkind. Why? Personal justification that he was sparing suffering and professional arrogance that he knew better than everyone else, including the patient. Add a hospital culture that hesitated to challenge a star, and you have the environment he exploited. The hospital's reforms did not erase the past, but they changed the routine. A second attending must now countersign any after-hours increase above a threshold. Pharmacy flags require a documented clinical reason, not just tolerance or comfort. Night shift nurses have a hotline to the on-call ethics team. Quarterly audits look for patterns by physician, not just outcomes by department. Small steps, but they close the gaps he used. For families who lost someone, the verdict did not fix the hole in their lives. It gave them a reason, not relief. Some of them now speak to new nurses and residents about consent and communication. Those talks are blunt. No inspiration quotes, just hard experience that sticks. As for Ward, prison turned his schedule into numbered blocks. He asked for medical library access. The request was denied at first, then allowed under supervision. He has filed appeals on technical grounds. None have changed the outcome yet. He is no longer called doctor inside those walls. He is an inmate with a number. I told you at the start, a pen, a chart, a calm voice. That is all it took because the system trusted the person holding them. The reason this case ended is because two people didn't outsource their judgment to a title. Maya wrote, Omar flagged, Quinn pulled the thread. The rest followed. I'm Santa. If this story kept you watching to the end, support the channel so we can bring more real cases like this. Hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment with what you want next.